I'm Edward Gomez and I'm the Education Director for Las Cumbres Observatory. I'm also one of the co-founders of ASTROEDU, a peer review platform to improve astronomy education activities. Pedro Russo and I were the founders of this, and what really motivated us to create ASTROEDU was a need for high quality astronomy education activities. Because we've often found ourselves when we were running a workshop or doing an activity with schools, we went to our favourite search browser and we just look for an activity. So maybe you're an educator and you're running a workshop on building an antenna to listen to Jupiter. You'd do a quick Google search and you come up with a list of options. You've no idea from looking at this search whether any of these are for your target audience, whether they're any good, whether they'll work for you in that context, and whether they're up to date or not. So we thought, well, maybe there are peer review platforms out there that we could look for activities. And yes, there are. Merlot, particularly Merlot 2, is a very good example of this, but it's very, very wide-ranging. And trying to find astronomy education activities on there, particularly for pre-university levels, is actually very hard. There are other projects which have tried to do this, like Jorum, but Jorum has now retired back in 2015. And NASA Wavelength also did this as well. And NASA Wavelength you can still search, but there's no way of submitting activities to it if you're outside of the NASA sphere of education. There are also open educational resources that are behind username and passwords. So it means that it's an extra barrier to educators finding your activities. So with all of this in mind, we created ASTROEDU. These are our three aims: to make the best astronomy activities accessible to educators around the world. So accessible not only in being able to find them, but accessible in that the language that is used in the activity makes them useful to educators and their students. We wanted to create an open source, an open access platform for these activities, so that they could be easily shared, but also easily used and remixed. And we wanted a platform that was for educators to find, to review, to share, to improve, and also to change educational activities. So how does the process work? So you may have an astronomy education activity that you've been using for a long time. You can't directly submit that activity. You'll need to put it in the ASTROEDU format. And the reason that we have a specific format and don't just allow free form is because we want all activities to be high quality. And so we've come up with a format for each activity. It needs to have background information. It needs to have an evaluation section so that when you're doing the activity, you know whether the target audience is actually learning things. And we have other keywords that we can help you to assign to your activity, which help us to sort and search each activity. So once the activity has been submitted, it's looked at by the editor-in-chief, and the editor-in-chief may have some questions based on whether it's in the right format or not. And once it's passed all of that, then the activity is passed on to two reviewers. One astronomy specialist, a professional astronomer, and one education specialist, a professional educator. And they review this activity. And our aim is for this activity then to go through a cycle with the editor and the author to satisfy the items in the review. And this is the part that improves each activity. Very rarely an activity is rejected. And in fact, we've never rejected an activity to date. Once the activity has satisfied the editor that the author has addressed all of the reviewer's comments, then the activity is published. It's sent off to other repositories like the Times Educational Supplement and the Guardian Education repositories, and it's also published on the ASTROEDU website. You can see the ASTROEDU website has a lot of activities there. You can go to this address and view them. This is the ASTROEDU website. So one of the main features that we wanted was a very simple search box. You could just search for any topic, say star, and you get a list of appropriate activities here. So this is an activity I developed. You can have a look here. You see that we have goals and learning objectives. We have sections which set out how you perform this activity and some key information about the activity itself. So you can immediately check whether it's appropriate for the audience that you have in mind. The search box is on top here, so if you want to have a look for, say, black holes, there you can see all of the activities which are relative to black holes. You can freely copy this information, or you can download it and print it out and share it with your students. We also have collections of activities which have been curated by our editors. So in the stars section you can see all the ones that are relevant to stars, but also ones that wouldn't appear in a search, like Astro Art. You can see ones there that have an artistic component. Also at the top you can see that there's a way that you can volunteer, and also you can submit your activities through our submission portal. If you host a version of your activity on your own website, you can also get a badge linking back to your activity on the ASTROEDU website. And we also encourage you to modify the activity that you've previously published to take into account the changes that reviewers have suggested, so that the version that you host and the version on ASTROEDU are nicely aligned. ASTROEDU is run by volunteers, so really we ask for your help in making ASTROEDU better. All of the reviewers and editors are all volunteers. The editorial structure is as follows. We have two language versions. We have an international or an English language version, and we have an Italian language version. And we're very open to the possibility of expanding ASTROEDU into other languages as well. The website will cope with multiple languages. This has a huge benefit of not only each language version being able to maintain their own peer review structure, but also because it's been through the ASTROEDU peer review structure and process in each individual language, then it can just be translated. Each activity can be translated into other languages of ASTROEDU as well. So we grow the pool of really high quality educational activities. The international version's editor-in-chief is Michael Fitzgerald, who you'll hear a talk from next, with an assistant editor of Gwen Sanderson, who's based at the Office of Astronomy Education. The editor-in-chief of the Italian version is Livia Giacomini, and we also have a steering committee that I chair with Jaya Ramchandani and Stefano Sandrelli, who oversees the work of ASTROEDU and in all versions, and really takes the responsibility of shaping the direction that ASTROEDU goes for the long term. So how can you help? Well, we really want to have volunteer reviewers. The whole process of ASTROEDU is based on having high quality peer review. And so we need really great reviewers from the education and from the astronomy side. And that's what this session is about. We'll have a question and answer session, but we'll lead through the discussion, and Michael will talk about this next, about how you can be an excellent reviewer for AstroEDU. We're also always looking for new activities to go through the peer review process. And because of our partnership with the Office of Astronomy Education, we're very keen on all new activities that are created by the IAU to be put through the AstroEDU process. You can also promote AstroEDU in your community as well. So please do have a look at the AstroEDU website, and if you have any questions, please ask them in the question and answer session. If you have any long-term questions or a long-term discussion, you can also email us at that address.